Welcome back to my channel, everybody. For those who don't know me, my name is Shweta. I'm the founder of Healthy Dynamics. We are a coaching practice that helps healthcare providers from English as a second language background improve both their language and communication skills in order to build better relationships with their patients and communicate with more credibility, authority, influence, and impact. Now, this today is part of our monthly interview series with healthcare experts or experts in the healthcare field. And today I have a very special guest. The facial resemblance might give something away, and the similarity in surnames may also give something away. So this lady is the one who, even though she doesn't like to take the credit for it, was the one who planted the seed in me to actually get started on what I'm doing with this brand and with this coaching practice. And she's been a big inspiration for myself, and I've spent the most part of my 38 years on Earth being guided and raised by her. So this is my mom, Dr. Beena, and I'm going to let her introduce herself. Welcome to my channel.
Thanks, Shweta. This is a great initiative. I know not all of us have, very good articulating skills. And though we may have great ideas, but we may not be able to articulate, and you're doing a great job in this field. So I'll introduce myself very briefly. My name is Beena. My surname is Kumar. I'm Beena Kumar. I'm a pathologist by profession. I studied medicine back in India. And initially, I was working in India as a pathologist for a few years, after which I migrated to Australia. And I've been here for almost 23 years, and I have been working in the healthcare setting in Australia since then.
Now, I am aware that when you first started your career actually, let's just backtrack for 1 second. Now, people, when they decide to work in healthcare, they are driven by quite a lot of values. That could be the pay, the significance, the title, the accolades, or a genuine desire and willingness to help people and make a difference, and somewhere in between. What was the reason that motivated you to venture into a career in healthcare? Because I know at one point you wanted to be a flight attendant. So how did that change? Why the choice to work in healthcare?
So I've always been interested in science right from my school days. And when I was in high school, I used to think, oh, what is this cancer? So cancer was not that prevalent, or we were not aware of cancer then. I used to think, oh, so many people struggle with cancer. So can I do something? I love science. Can I do something? Can I make a difference in this field of cancer? And will I be in a position where I can treat cancer or help patients who are suffering from cancer? So, at that point in time, I was quite young, and I was thinking, oh, is a nursing career good? Is it good being a doctor? Where can I make a difference? So at the moment, so that's how my journey started. I think the first drive was, what can I do for cancer patients? And that's how it started. And then, of course, I was interested in biology. So I did well in school, got into medicine, which was quite competitive back in India. And then I was tossing between a career in pediatrics versus pathology. And, pediatrics, yes, it's more general. Not all pediatric patients are cancer patients. So I thought, being a pathologist, I actually give an answer whether the patient has cancer or does not have cancer, based on which, patient gets treated further. So it's a very rewarding career, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And okay, that's that. And I have sort of worked, and you didn't just work with cancer patients to start off with. You had people who had leprosy, leishmania, all those communicable diseases, which falls under the big umbrella of pathology. And then you eventually found your feet and niche in pathology, and now you specialized in breast pathology, renal pathology, or which one out of them?
So I specialize in breast pathology and hematolymphoid pathology, which is just cancer in lymph nodes and in blood, and also in brain tumors, which is called neuropathology.
Okay, and your role is not a clinical one, because at one point I know that you're very keen on clinical medicine, and you really wanted to be in the thick of things and be in the trenches, so to speak, with patients. But then you realized that it also has a lot of challenges, but there's also a part of you that misses working in clinical medicine. So can you tell me, just from your experience, what are the pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages from your perspective on both these fields of medicine? And what parts of both fields do you really miss and want to get back to doing more of?
As long as I was in India, it was not a big difference, because um, in Australia, I think it's slightly different. You can either be this or that. Whereas in India, you can, even if you do a post graduation in pathology, you could still continue with your, general practice. So I know in India, when I was working as a pathologist, I still had, a charitable clinic at home, I would say. So, I had, all these low income group people coming to me saying they have this and that and stomach ache and cold and cough. So I would just keep a box of medicines in my house, treat these patients, and then give them the medications as needed. In Australia, it's slightly different, but it is, I would say, it is pathology is more intense here. So I think the system here is good, because you just focus on and become good at what you're doing. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So you're not getting diluted by doing this and that and trying to do multiple things. So actually, I like this system, because you are focused on one specialty and you get good at that. And though it is, I think I would not totally agree with this clinical medicine stuff, because pathology is still, if you look at what is the definition of pathology, it's a Greek word, it's called suffering, but pathology is medicine. So we are still part of clinical medicine, though we don't physically see patients or treat patients. What we contribute is, goes a long way for the doctors who are in the wards and, in the outpatient department, to take the next step and see, hey, what do I do next with this patient? So we are still part of clinical medicine. The only difference is we don't examine patients on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. And I remember growing up as a child, and back in the day, I remember when you would have all these, the poor people, as you referred to them, the ones who would just come to our house at really odd times without even getting an appointment from you, and they would just stay there for hours and hours. And it used to get on my nerves, because I was like, well, these people have no decency, they have no respect for your time. But you had a very different mindset, that like, these people are struggling, they're not able to find a solution for what their health problems are, and you had it in you to have that sense of urgency to really sort of help them. And what it brings me, and even from my experience of working in healthcare, there's a stark difference between the way in which doctors and healthcare providers are perceived in India versus in Western countries. What has been your experience with that? How do you feel? I know you don't work with patients, but I'm sure you have had interactions with patients over here. So how are you viewed over here, and how are you treated over here by them versus how you were in India, regardless of what, and you can also talk about, was there a difference in the way different people from different income brackets, whether there was a difference in the way that they perceived and treated you?
Okay, good questions. A lot to take in. So in India, what happens is there is a lot of disparity, from an income perspective. So there are a group or a big cohort who are extremely rich. And, whoever's been on social media recently would have seen the mega wedding which happened in India.
Yes.
One of the businessman's son,
Mm-hmm.
which was, not sure it was necessary, but anyway, I love the color and, costumes. So that's what
Mm-hmm.
I enjoyed.
I mean,
But
it's their money, it's their business, but
yeah,
that's besides the
exactly.
point, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the group of, citizens who have a lot of money, but there is also this group where, they don't have anything. And then, even getting into a public hospital, they need someone to help them get into the public hospital, because the system is so jam-packed and overcrowded. And the poor cohort cannot afford to go to a private hospital because it costs money.
Mm-hmm.
So I think so that's that disparity used to bother me a lot when I was in India. And I just think it has to be equitable. Everybody should have access to healthcare. So, and that's why I used to do what I could do within my, control. Yes, I can give them medications, I can take them to the hospital, I can bring them to a doctor who's a friend of mine, say in hematology or dermatology or wherever, so I could help them that way. And yes, there is a lot more so with the poor people, when you help them, you show them that empathy and the concern, they are very, very, they have a lot of gratitude towards you. So I never had any problems with getting someone to help me with the garden or work at home, because they would always go out of the way to help me. But that was not my intention behind helping them. Whether they help me or not, I would still help them. In Australia, it is a bit more professional, I would say. There is, and I think this is a good system where you don't really get close to your patients. You just treat and that I think you have to maintain that distance. And before I moved to Australia, I didn't know that, this was the way medicine was practiced in Australia, but it was a steep learning curve for me. But I think this system is better, where you are not, where you're very professional, you're factual, you're transparent, you're honest with the patients. You don't give them false hopes that, hey, you'll be all right. If a patient has terminal cancer, he cannot be all right. So I think the doctors here don't hesitate to tell the patients as to what the exact situation is. So I think that is a good system. So, and here they are treated as, in India, the poor people regard you as gods if you're a doctor, whereas here everybody is treated, every profession is important here. And that's what I like about this country. Nobody is, great or not great. Everybody's profession is valuable in its own way. So I think that's a great thing in Australia.
Mm-hmm. And I have to agree, but at the same time, a lot of my coaching and a lot of my content really talks about breaking down this very rigid and old-fashioned definition of what professionalism is. And also, even like you mentioned, it's important that healthcare professionals are factual. I totally get that. But what's missing is that there is, because also healthcare providers are under the pump all the time, always having to do so many things. And on top of that admin work, those really crucial soft skills that's important for them to connect with patients has really started to fall through the cracks. And that's where a person like me sort of stepped in and said, how can they do that where they can show their human side to patients without, again, having those boundaries, so that no one gets too attached, no one gets too, people, to the point that there's no sort of clear boundaries between your work life and your personal life. That's what I talk about a lot on this on my content and everything as well. So what would you say from your perspective in terms of why these why people in general are losing faith or trust in the healthcare system as patients? And I am one of them. Even though it's ironical, I am one of them. I don't trust the healthcare system whatsoever. Why do you think that is the case, and from your perspective, and what can be done in order to make sure that patients are having a good experience consistently? What can healthcare providers do?
I think we shouldn't forget empathy, because I think patients need that.
Mm-hmm.
And how do you deliver that empathy or show your empathy, I think, is the skill which every healthcare professional should nurture within himself or herself, and follow it. So I think it comes with time, it comes with age. I know my GP is very professional, but at the same time, she has a lot of empathy. So I think that's very important. So I think we should never forget that, the patients are vulnerable, and we have to be careful, as I said, the balance of being empathetic versus giving them a false hope that everything is fine, is where we need to draw a line. And the thing is, from a healthcare perspective, a healthcare professional perspective, I would say that yes, there is the healthcare system is probably stretched out. The emergency departments are all full. Hospitals are all. I mean, there are lots of patients coming in, and so they are overworked, and I can see that. And so the thing is, so it becomes very protocol driven because of the time factor. I think that's the main issue. But um, I think Australia is one of the best healthcare systems in the world. We really shouldn't be complaining because I don't think any other country has it so good. Yes, there are delays. There might be, overcrowded emergency departments and hospitals. But I think we are really lucky because if you go to a hospital for an emergency, you are taken care of. In a public health system, I don't think this is seen in any other country in the world. It is just fantastic here.
Mm-hmm. And I can't 100% disagree with that, especially when you see, because I have a lot of people from the States and their healthcare system is in complete shambles. And yes, because I've traveled to so many parts of the world as well, like places like Canada and Sweden, even though the system is very regulated, it's very well managed at the same time. So, and I get a lot of positive compliments about that as well. So, yeah. And how has moving to Australia and working here and in some ways reinventing yourself as a healthcare provider made you better at what you do? Because there are some things you didn't do in India that you are now doing because you didn't get the opportunity to. You were quite limited in your role in what you could do in India, whereas here there's much more of a scope. You had to really get yourself out of your comfort zone. So, what were your experiences? What did you learn from them? And how has that made you a better healthcare provider?
So when I moved to Australia, I had to resit all my exams, which was
Mm-hmm.
not fun.
Mm-hmm.
So I could have taken two paths. I could have just said, "Oh, why should I be sitting all these exams?" You can go on a binging mode and say, "Oh, I'm a qualified pathologist from India. I've worked there for as a pathologist for 5 years. I have experience. Why should I be doing all this again?" So that's one way of looking at things. But the other way of looking at things is, "Hey, let's get on to this and see what is different." So that's what I chose the option two. So I thought, yeah, no, I'm going to give it a go. Let me see how different it is and how difficult or easy it is. I wouldn't say it was easy because lots more exams in Australia compared to India, but it is so well organized. It's so protocol driven. I think that's what was lacking in India. So there is no uniform system. Each state has, when I say states, like it's like our, like Victoria,
Australia.
South Wales, there
Mm-hmm.
are about 25, 30 states. They each one has their own rules and regulations. Whereas in Australia, everything is done through a Royal College of Pathologists.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a system. So I am very system driven. So
Mm-hmm.
it suited me, luckily.
Mm-hmm.
So I want a system in place. If there is a system in place, I find it easy to follow. And yeah, I'm not rigid, but then I know the path which I should take. So I think that actually helped me. So though it was difficult sitting all those exams, I was not in my 20s then, so it was difficult sitting all those exams. I had a family, I had I was new to this country, so it was a culture shift, but I still did it because for me, I think I was very passionate about medicine, and I was very passionate about, I don't like wasting anything, whether it is water or electricity or whatever, or gas, and even education. I didn't want to waste it. My husband was in a great job when we moved to Australia. I could have just taken the easy path and not done anything. But I chose to not waste my education and my capabilities. So that's why. And I think it was, initially it was a bit difficult, but then how much I have learned here is just unbelievable. I wouldn't have been this good a pathologist had I stayed in my job in India.
Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that. Now, um, what you also did, again, from my observation, is that what you have started to do a lot in Australia is, and after you got qualified here, you started to work here, is you started to present at conferences, you gave talks and seminars and all that, something you didn't do much of or very little of in India. How was that experience for you to now take your communication skills to sort of pivot them and go into speaking to a different audience, and and how did you develop that? Now, I'll take some credit. I did sort of give you some feedback on your presentation skills. I've done that in the past, but at the same time, how did you train yourself to get better? Because it would have been nerve-wracking to do that all over again, in a new country and with a new audience.
Yeah, so I in India I hardly presented because I was always a nervous speaker, and I was never comfortable giving lectures or talking about something, and I would have to practice, and I would be a bit um, on the edge when I had to present something. But then when I moved to Australia, yes, initially again it was not that easy, but slowly you look at others, you observe and see what how they do it, and then you also realize that if you don't do it, then nobody will know what you're doing. So how do you promote yourself? How do you let others know that you have this capability? So I think that is the driver. And then yes, I think initially in Australia, even a couple of the first few presentations, I was so nervous. But then now I'm never nervous. In fact, I sometimes I prepare for my talks just 2 days before the talk. So you are in your comfort zone now, and you're talking about topics which you are familiar with. That's the other thing which I'm very particular about. I don't go and give lectures uh, on topics on which I have no idea about. I don't like just Googling and, picking things from here and there. Say, for example, somebody asked me to talk about water management or, something like that. And even artificial intelligence. I know it's coming, but I'm not an expert. So I would probably restrict myself only to my areas of expertise. So that gives you
Yes.
some comfort and that gives
Mhm.
you confidence to be,
Mhm. Yeah.
good at what you're doing. Yeah.
Yes. And, as someone who, and I agree with you that, unless you really put yourself out there, people will not know who you are, people will not know what you do. And also, I was stuck in this mentality that I have to do everything perfectly before I started doing this. I have to have all my ducks in a row and get everything spot on and completely correct. But I only realized that, and I made so many mistakes last year when I was making content, doing YouTube videos and all that. But from then, when I first started to now, there's been a huge shift in terms of how, and I've got traction and I know now what to say, what to do. Talking has never been like a big, and I've always been very good at it. But when it comes to, again, educating people about your services and your expertise, sharing your expertise with them, can sometimes make you feel like an imposter, especially when you see a lot of people who pretend to be doctors and pretend to have all this knowledge and they don't have any accolades to show for behind behind whatever they're saying. So that's where it's hard to tell the difference between who's genuine and who's real nowadays. Now, just to finish things up, just on a final note, how would you integrate being, because I believe that even if you're a healthcare provider, every single person has a very creative side to them. It's stronger in some people than it is in others. And I see that a lot of people, because I'm very active on LinkedIn, I see so many people now who are becoming creators, who are in the healthcare field, who are creators on LinkedIn. And again, they're taking to Instagram and TikTok and YouTube to share all of these things. How can you or other healthcare providers really integrate creativity and sharing their knowledge and expertise?
Yeah, I think, yes. I can take breast cancer as an example.
Mm-hmm,
Um, so maybe not so much in countries like Australia,
mm-hmm,
because there's no more awareness, and you have something called a breast screen program.
mm-hmm.
Most of us go to breast screen after a particular age, but maybe it'll be useful for those countries where there is not much awareness. So we should probably create awareness. So people like me who've been working in that field for a long time could probably create awareness by saying, when should you go to the doctor? When should you should be examining your breasts regularly. What are the early signs and symptoms? What you should not ignore, and if you end up with breast cancer, is it doom and gloom? Probably not. Many patients feel that way. So you could probably educate them on these areas, is what I think.
Okay.
Mm.
Is that something that you would be open to doing at some point? Like,
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
yeah,
I think we have to give back to society in whichever
totally,
shape or form.
totally, yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you. I think especially now as someone who is heavily invested in LinkedIn,
Mm.
the scope is enormous. And I'm very glad that I have people like, again, I'm going to mention my LinkedIn coach Sarim, who really showed me how much of a gold mine LinkedIn is for creators and for to really build a brand and to really build create visibility and promote yourself. And that's where you're more likely to also find the right people. But having said that, I know, because when I go on TikTok, I see, again, one of my absolute favorite creators on TikTok is Dr. Amir. He's a veterinarian. And because he's in South Africa, he is, so his target audience is everybody who has animals, obviously. But how he is able to really be, even though he's very introverted as an individual, he's able to educate people on how they can take care of their pets and all the health conditions that they have by combining skits and doing dances and doing all that. And I'm not saying that you have to do that, but the way that how people are now reinventing, while they're doing their job and which they love to do in healthcare, but also making what they are teaching, what they know, and making it accessible to everyone through places like TikTok, which every man and dog has now. Is really really fascinating and good to see. So yeah, I would highly encourage. And for some people it's YouTube, and there is nothing wrong with that as well. So you just have to find the right avenue and your style of how you talk to people, and and also what you want to share. So yeah. Now, just to finish off, where can people find you?
I think my Hotmail address is good.
Yeah, but are you happy for me to put your LinkedIn details here?
LinkedIn is probably, yeah, you could. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll tag you and everything like that. So yeah, this was a very good, interesting conversation. So I really appreciate your time and sharing your knowledge, experience, and expertise with us. And I hope the audience on this channel also got something out of it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell, everyone, if you want to see more of such videos. I do these every month. Next month, I'm going to get another very interesting guest in the chronic illness treatment field. So I'm looking forward to having her on at some point. And for everyone watching and listening, thank you very much for your time, energy, attention, and presence. And I will see you next week.